So I'm down here in Chinatown, Chicago's Chinatown. But this neighborhood, if they put the Sox Park over there, and again, they could get financing from China. Truly. The connection, Chinese need to diversify, and they can invest in the stadium. So you still own the land and everything. So they can't repossess the land. So it can't go anywhere. So they can have the Chinese community do an issue in China to raise the money for the stadium here. And this area will directly get benefited, and this area, as it goes up, it buys products from China. Chinatown, they import things here. Raymond Lee has a big import-export business with China. And so if this community grows and the other communities grow, China gets more trade, and so they're investing in the expansion of their export business. And also, it opens up avenues for import here. So things that get here get sent to China to improve their life, and they send things here to improve our life. That's how import-export works. It's a win-win situation. So the stadium can be totally funded by China. And so you have Pacific Global and Calfway and American Metro are the three banks, small. And then you have Lakeside Bank. They can do a four-way syndication. And how do they do it? They syndicate bonds into China. Yeah, they syndicate a bond issue, and it could be CDs and banks in China. Now, you're going to have to turn over the CDs, but if you want to fund a stadium, you can do 1, 5, 10-year CDs. I don't know if they go 15, but again, you can do 3, 6, like treasuries, 3, 6, 9 year, and so on. And then you rotate them. They'll come up to maturity, and then people will reinvest. And so you get a variable rate. Truly, you'll have a variable rate, but you'll have these reissues. So you have a reissue, so many in 3 months, so many in 6 months, so many in 1 year, so many in 2 years, and 5-year CDs. So if you want it, you can do the issue through CDs in the bank. And the stadium revenue, it's like not a general bond, but a, what do they call it? Anyways, Project Pacific bonds. And so a revenue bond. And so the CDs get paid the interest. So it's a floating rate based on, and these are not fixed rate CDs. These would be floating rate CDs based on the return from the investment. So the worst they get is 0%. They have a floor. They can't lose their money, but they can get more, and it's a linked, so they can get more in interest. And here, to make the project go, you would do right here, TIF, tax incentive finances, you would just freeze, put a moratorium on property values. Truly. And then you would slowly, as a sliding scale, say over 5 years or something, you will slowly lift the moratorium. So it's a 5-year moratorium. And after the first year, it increases by, or it could be a 10-year. After the first year, it goes up by 10%. And then after the second year, it goes up by another 10%. So over 10 years, it'll get to fair market value with the property tax. So you can have a sliding scale with the property tax. So the city eventually will get its money, and then you can have hardship situations where they can appeal, and you would get a hardship granted, and you would get a freeze, like a senior freeze. Senior freeze is a really hardships because they say these seniors live on fixed income, so they give a senior freeze. So it's the same thing. So it's a hardship grant that you give to them so you don't force them out of their property. And so you'll have a few people that might qualify for a hardship grant. And so you have to monitor their income. They have to give you information, and then you monitor the income. And so you get the hardship. And so the stadium would go in here, and this area would boom. And like I said, you can do the acoustics right, where here you would have sound absorbing and so on and so forth, and you would focus the stadium noise out westward, and you can put it north, westward and north. And you could put trees and shrubs in those areas, and you can redo the target over here in that. And I'll go up on Roosevelt. But you have the underground tunnel. This is Clark Street. And then Clark goes up to Roosevelt or goes under Roosevelt. And so this artery, but the only thing is you have to worry about having an event at Soldier Field and having an event at Sox Park at the same time. How much traffic can Roosevelt truly handle? This is where public transportation and remote parking, so you can syndicate the parking out to remote areas like all the way here, not going east. They don't need the parking going east. They're starving. So, but you would go west and syndicate the remote parking out, and you would go westbound with the parking. And so that would pump money into the economics with the remote parking in that, and also pump money into the CTA lines that are going west on here. So, and then you have the Metra right here. Look at that Amtrak Metro station right there, right on the other side of the river from Sox Park. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer. And this is all commercial area. So the Whole Foods and all this area would get an extreme bump. So, and it would carry all the way down to UIC. And so the University of Illinois could have a lot of its students work at the stadium as well. College students. You're creating tons of jobs for college students, from food vendors to beer vendors to so on and so forth. So you're creating a lot of employment for people in college as well. And then there's high school students that can work as well. So high school's down here, college here, and so they can all work over there. And you just got to figure out this corridor. And you're right here off of the Kennedy Expressway, 9094. So all they're doing is moving the stadium north. Moving it north. And then they free up that area for residential development or other developments. They could put a mall there. That area needs a mall. So the stadium comes down. Maybe they put a mall there. That area needs a mall. So the stadium comes down and a mall goes up right there. They need a mall, and then the mall supports with shopping and other things that area, and then they put in some more housing and so on, and it's a great place to live. In the mall, they have all kinds of shopping and food and giving it some more alternative, and then they can make it, themed to the neighborhood. Is it an Italian neighborhood? So it can have an Italian flair, the mall. Like Chinatown is a Chinese flair. They could do like Italy, that's farther down here. They can give it more of an Italian flair, right? And so this area would benefit greatly from down here. And so here's UIC. And when they do the stadium, they can also do some rebuild. Yeah, part of the stadium is building up infrastructure around it, and part of it they can invest in the UIC. Truly, not only give jobs to students, here's the baseball stadium, it needs to be enhanced. So part of the stadium deal is they do some improvements in the area because they need to improve the infrastructure. What they're talking about in the area with the Bears, so they can, if they combine the stadiums and they move the Bears towards McCormick Place, and then the Sox do the stadiums at the same time, they can pump in a couple $2 billion in related infrastructure into the area. So literally they can pump about $2 billion in related infrastructure to the area. So this would bring up all these businesses around UIC and that. And part of the $2 billion infrastructure is they enhance UIC. So I don't know what they need to do, but they can enhance UIC and the area around here. And so it would only make sense that they would do that. And so part of the Bears proposal was a $1.5 billion infrastructure was part of the financing of the stadium. So not only building the new stadium, but all the infrastructure around. And so now you throw in another $500 million with the Sox stadium going there. And now you have another $2 billion going into this area in revitalization. So you can do small business microfinancing to help start businesses in the area, improve the sewers, waterways, streets, improve the commercial lines, the rail lines, and all that. So you can do $2 billion is a lot to go into the area in total improvements. And so all this area will benefit, and you're not that far from the south side if you keep it in Chicago. So I have no problem with keeping it in Chicago, and it seems like great. I mean, if alternative, Gary is great, but you're moving further out. So where do you want to create the enhancements? And if you're going to do the Bears Stadium, then moving the Sox Stadium there makes perfect sense. And then you can pump several $1 billion into this area. And like I said, you can syndicate and this stuff, and China can fund it. The Chinese banks. So you can pump in, they need to diversify, and you can go to them for funding. And the great thing about real estate, it can't move. That's like America investing in China. We can't repossess. So they own it long term, and all we're doing is making an investment in China. So ultimately, it's theirs. So you can't move the real estate, per se. So this whole area, I don't know what this area per se is. You know, I don't know where I'm by 21st Street, but technically I don't know what this area is. So this is Cermak and so on. So I don't know what this is called. But a couple $1 billion, you're talking, what, a radius from the stadium? 5-mile radius? Truly, you can do infrastructure for 5 miles around. There's not much going towards the lake, so it's not going to be much on the east side. All of the improvements are going to be west and north and south. So it's going west, and then of the west, it's going north and south from the west. So you're talking about making substantial improvements within a certain radius that reaches out and touches a lot of people. $2 billion is a lot of infrastructure. and can be used in many different ways. So I'm down here. The only reason I'm going this way, and here's the expressway again, but Sox Park is down here, and so it would benefit. So again, I think this area, it needs a mall. So, and they can do all kinds of tax incentive financing, meaning incentivizing microfinancing into this area to do all kinds of renovations and improvements, meaning low income loans for renovating houses and, apartment buildings and renovating businesses, truly doing business improvement, capitalization. And so you can have all low income loans that have, guaranteed low rates for, blank amount of years. So they can pour a couple $1 billion into this area. So again, it makes sense redoing the stadiums and pouring the billions into the area. And so all these people get an enhanced life. All this real estate, they get to move themselves up. And so, and with that, they'll all get equity bumps. And so, again, it's a way to pull people out of poverty. Yeah, the stadium will help pull these people out of poverty. So here's a strip mall. And so, I don't know. Maybe a mall's not a good idea. But again, I don't know. And here is guaranteed rate field parking. So let's go down this way on 31st Street. So you have this area here. You have a little strip mall. But again, that's not substantial. So maybe full-blown mall maybe is. But if not, then you have to figure out some other utilization. So again, I don't know. I'm heading down towards Guaranteed Rate Field, and this is Union, and this is heading down towards the lakefront. I'm heading east. But you can revitalize the churches in the community too through low interest loans. Of that $2 billion, you offer, say, $500 million to the community in low interest financing for community improvements for businesses and for residential units and so on. Besides whatever you're going to do with the streets and everything else. So that can be, that means microfinancing for startups and so on. So that's part of the infrastructure, the $2 billion, and then you're going to do sewer systems and power lines and gas lines and electrical lines and all kinds of improvements, city lights, street lights, and stoplight systems and crosswalks and sidewalks. And so a substantial renovation. So here's Canal. So you would do substantial renovation. I mean, yeah, I was going to go there. So, but I'm not hungry. So substantial renovation. So Bugsy's Bees Learning School. So, and then part of that, you can reinvest in the elementary schools, the preschools, the elementary schools, the high schools around here. And so $2 billion brings you $500 million for microfinancing, and then $1.5 billion into the infrastructure. So that does include the school systems. So everybody would win. And they would get the state-of-art stadium, and that brings in tourism and everything, because people come from St. Louis to the Cubs games and so on. I don't know who travels for the Sox. Who are the Sox that travel? I know when the St. Louis Cardinals play the Cubs, I watch every year the St. Louis fans, and if they get that connection between St. Louis and Chicago, they're in a flood down here. So I don't know who the Sox, when they play a certain team, but when the Cubs play the St. Louis Cardinals, there is tons and tons of St. Louis people here. And yes, it's weekend series when they come in. If they're playing the week games, you don't really get that much. But when they play like the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you get unbelievable amounts of St. Louis when it's the weekend series. And they flood in. I mean, they take up hotels. They're walking around with all their St. Louis Cardinals stuff. And so, who does that for the Chicago White Sox? Truly, the Cubs-Cardinals rivalry. Remember Mark Aguirre and Sammy Sosa? Huge rivalry. And then, I don't know, with the Chicago Blackhawks, or is the St. Louis Blues the big rivalry? And do St. Louis people come down and do Chicago people go up? I know I went up when we played the Milwaukee Brewers. Me and a bunch of people went up and watched the Brewers play the Chicago Cubs. And that stadium's beautiful, and it's modeled after Wrigley Field. Milwaukee Brewers Stadium is modeled after Wrigley Field. And so I was impressed with the park. It's a beautiful park. And we went up there to watch the Brewers play the Chicago Cubs. So, and there's a bunch of fans that people travel up to Milwaukee. I don't know how many. I wasn't paying that close of attention, but there was a group of Chicago people traveling up. But I don't know with the Chicago Bulls and Blackhawks, and this is the reciprocity between the city. And this gets people improving life. You go there, they come here, and, it creates community and interconnects the Midwest. So I don't know who that is with the Chicago White Sox. Who is the local, American League rivalry? Is it the Detroit Tigers? And so when the Detroit Tigers played the Chicago White Sox, do people come down? Lots of people from Detroit. And when the Sox play the Tigers, do they go up to Detroit? I have no idea. I don't know the rivalry. So, I used to be, Jack Morris and all them. I used to be, then Pudge went from the catcher, went from Pudge Jr. I think that's what they called him, Pudge, the Hispanic guy, went from Texas to Detroit, and he was awesome. Carlton Fisk went from Boston to Chicago, and his nickname was Pudge. So I'm back here on Martin Luther King Drive. So it would feed into McCormick Place and for conventions and everything else. And conventions, all those associations, everybody can be vetted. And business tourism, through them, they can vet everybody through security backgrounds and everything else. And you have oversight, but Chicago conventions can be some of the safest business you can get. And if you keep on going straight to church, but going down the McCormick Center, it would benefit. So, and conventions you can control because everybody's coming in as part of association. So they're coming in, they're part of a group, so you get to set up all the rules. So convention business, general tourism is hard, but convention tourism, it's very easy, controlled with gag orders and everything else. So convention business is very easy because the American Medical Association, the American Dental Association, they can destroy people's careers. So they can kick them out. They can disbar them, like there's Chicago having a legal convention. Chicago Bar Association, other bars, they strip them of their licenses. So it can be very much convention business tourism can be very good for Chicago. So that business can be easily controlled with all the associations that run the conventions. They set up the parameter, and they can have anyone violating, they can do severe ramifications. So it's the greatest form of tourism. You can vet the members. They know their members' history and everything else, and they know everybody that's affiliated with the members, so you can cross-reference with people and businesses and work history and so on. So that's the greatest type of business, the most secure type of business. And so you can flood Chicago with conventions. And that's what I've been trying to do. Big on convention business. And they go to the Sox games, the Cubs games, the Bears games. You can have conventions all year round. There's winter convention for winter sports. You have during the summer, and summer sports during the winter. Cubs Fest, Sox Fest. Those are baseball conventions. And so people have to come, they get tickets and so on and so forth. So McCormick Center and that. So you can flood the city with all kinds of different conventions. And I've been saying that it's the greatest business that the city can have is hosting these mega conventions. And so, again, doing the stadium deal, I'll post this to YouTube because I'm cut off on Facebook. But the whole thing is McCormick Center and this is the Hyatt Hotel. I made a mistake, not the Hilton. But I like the Hyatt. And I like the Hilton. I like the Marriott. And the part of the hotel industry. I was part of the hotel industry. So it's obviously the bigger thing is the hospitality industry. The live video boards. They can run those or recharge through solar. So, you can have the pizza convention here. Or Italian food convention. How about all the Italian restaurants around the world? And you have the Italian food convention here. Truly. And Italy and so vendors from Italy and all the Italian food, and then people that make American Italian food. It's, we have dishes here that have been invented, and there's Italian food that's made here. So you can have an international Italian food festival, and that includes pizza and pastas and sauces and you name it. And so you can have the Italian food festival. And we have a big Italian American, and my friend Chris, his family used to sit on the Italian American heritage community, and there's lots of Italian restaurants, so we can have the International Italian Food Fest. And that would include all the pizza places and Rosebud and steakhouses. Rosebud Prime is a steakhouse, and so all that can be done, and then you're pumping incredible amount. Somebody passed out with the pizza. So there's people right there. I assume that, other people take responsibility too. So, am I the only one always calling 911? So, anyways, you have the L line right here. They would have to enhance it in that, but it's good for UIC, good for Chinatown. It says Chinatown right there. But, so it's all part of a $2 billion infrastructure enhancement. And then you have another train line right here. So you have 2 train lines right back to back. And then on the other side, you have the metro line. So you would improve the metro stations, this stations. You would improve the bus transportation, integrating the train lines and bus lines and metro line and the Amtrak Metra. And so that would be all part of this package. So people, you can get great enhancements. So here's the other station. And then we're back here into Chinatown. And so Chinatown would enhance itself through low interest loans. And so you'd have to have community meetings and, offer the different lending packages for revitalization. And you're going to pump in $500 million to revitalize miles and miles of area outside of all the infrastructure that you're doing, from power to stoplights to stop signs to roadways to sewer systems to water lines to electrical lines to gas lines to storm drainage systems, you name it, to sidewalks, so street lighting, you name it. So that's the other $1.5 billion of infrastructure. So total infrastructure package, $2 billion. So, and like I said, it could be miles and miles and miles that you go both west and north and south. So, again, so this all can be, and it's all triggered by the 2 stadiums. And it's all triggered by needing to diversify and hedge currency and everything. And even think about this. Even if you don't make much on the stadiums, if the US dollar does well, they'll get a currency bump. That's part of the interest rate return. So they'll get a currency bump, a Forex bump. And so when you convert out of dollars back to yen, they can get a currency bump. So even if you pay them 0 in interest, if the US dollar is strengthening, they get their return anyways. So literally, you don't even have to pay any interest. You just have to give them their money back. Their money back. Because you're going to take dollars and convert it into yen. And from there, they get their interest. I don't know what the ratio is, but you can figure it out. And so it could be a 0 interest loan. You pay no interest, but it's all pegged to the currency. But that means people actually have to be good, right? You'd have to have effective law enforcement and so on and so forth, making sure people are doing the right things. Because to push the currency forward and up, you can't have crime. See, criminal activity brings the currency down. And so if you want a 0 interest loan, you have to push the currency up. And so you would have to make sure in the area that it's really crime-free. And that means no tax evasion. Yes, tax evasion. That is very much suppresses currency. So you can't have tax evasion. There is just not criminal activity. There is other criminal activity, and one of them is tax evasion. And so you can't have them not paying the proper taxes, from property taxes to sales taxes to income taxes and so on. And so that goes in it. You can't have these financial crimes as well. So I'm not just talking about snatch and grabs and that. I'm talking about financial crimes as well. So you're making sure that, you're getting all your dollars. And so you have to suppress that. That's why I don't understand the Chicago Police Department doesn't work with the Illinois Department of Revenue, the Cook County Department of Revenue, the City of Chicago Department of Revenue, and the IRS, working with IRS agents and that from the federal and that. They can have their own units looking for financial crimes. So I don't get it. They should be investigating financial crimes. Sales tax fraud, those are all criminal activities. So like Black Rain, that was criminal. It was a financial crime. He didn't, there was no murder or anything else. It was a financial crime. And so I don't understand the Chicago Police Department. Not all crimes are physical crimes. The greatest crimes are Bernie Madoff and others that are financial crimes. Or like, what's his name, who didn't pay the FICA tax. And so he withheld that. There are other crimes where they're not paying properly their withholdings and that. They're delayed on their withholdings. The withholdings come out of the checks, and they're supposed to be doing it in a timely fashion. And when they don't do that in a timely fashion, that is a financial crime. So they have all kinds of SUDA and FUDA, federal and state unemployment tax they need to pay, and other things. And when they don't pay them in a timely fashion, that is a financial crime. It's a criminal activity. And so, money laundering, financial crime. So I don't understand with the Chicago Police Force why it isn't building out its financial crime task force. That's how the mob and all that do it. It's really moving money. It's really financial crimes. And if you can take the incentive out, the monetary incentive, that's the greatest way to snuff out crime. If you can take all drug dealers and that are moving money, it's financial crimes. So, but they're only looking at the hard crime, the selling of the drugs and that, but they're not looking at the financial crime aspect. So they need to convert, and they need to really start focusing hard on financial crimes. People like doing at businesses, going in and doing audits on the business, truly insane. I need to see your ledgers and everything. Because I told you at Dirtbags, he pulled the general register tapes and he didn't record the sales anymore. And then he just turned in the register tapes and only declare, but they didn't cross-reference to his purchases. And so he was pocketing unbelievable amounts of money in financial crimes. So these businesses, they hide sales. They pull out the journal tape out of the register, or they audit it if it's digital, the journal tapes. They delete. And so they do things like that to create financial crimes. Also, they substitute products is another crime. That's why you have the alcohol beverage. They take Absolute vodka, right, the bottle, and they take cheap vodka, some well vodka, say Burton's. It's a good well, but still cheap compared to Absolute. They take the Burton's and put it in an Absolute bottle. That's a financial crime. They're selling it as a premium, but it's a well liquor. And they're keeping the difference, the spread. It's a financial crime. So they're doing this with food product. They're like, one stole beef, and they were selling this illegal beef on the black market. And the place, it was from Romo's, and they were going to use it, and they bought it cheap, and they were going to use it for their restaurant, and they were buying it on the black market. So again, there's all these different forms of crime that are going on that the Chicago Police Department aren't doing. And then there's all the scams where they charge somebody for cleaning the sidewalks, but they don't do the sidewalks properly. That's a financial crime. They billed them one thing, and they did something else. Like the old lady next door to me. My brother worked with the guys, and these are white guys, and the old lady paid for the siding of the property. And they got 50% done, and once they got the second check, they took off, never came back and finished the other half of the job. They kept the other half of the money. A financial crime. They scammed her out of the other half of the work. So her siding on her house, she had to have somebody else come in and pay them again, pay somebody else to complete the job. So they only finished 50%, and then once they got the remaining 50%, they took off. And my brother was helping them with cleanup, and they did a good job on the first 50%, but they only do 50% of the job, and the other 50% is straight in their pocket. They don't have to do anything for it. And they scammed this old lady. And my brother was helping and was doing labor cleaning up and everything, and they paid him. But all of a sudden, he was there, and they didn't show up. And they scammed the old lady. So these are all kinds of crimes that are going on that the Chicago Police Department and local law enforcement are supposed to be cracking down on. And so you say criminal, no, so what? Violent crime goes away. There's all kinds of things they got to make sure they hold people's foot to the fire. And they don't need to be flying around the city threatening people, speeding. So there's different forms of crime, and they're not addressing any of them. Just like my friend Heath, he stole. What did he do? He tapped into somebody else's electrical and siphoned off electricity. And then other people siphoned off cable from people. And other people siphoned off gas and siphoned off water and many other things. They tapped into other people's utilities and stole their utilities. And the other people were paying the utility bills. And so all they did was tap into the utilities, and they had free utilities here in Chicago. But that's what the police are supposed to be looking into, but no one's looking into all these crimes. And then people not paying their rent. They went a year after I moved out. The roommates and that didn't pay the guys that owned the property for 1 year. And so that's a financial crime. And where's the Chicago law enforcement? Where are they? And my friend Sylvia, she has a squatter here in Chicago, and he didn't pay her for the longest period of time. Where was the Chicago PD? Where is the law enforcement? There's so much going on that they're not doing. When food poisoning, that's a crime. They're supposed to be working with the health inspectors and busting people for tainted goods. So there's all kinds of fraudulent goods and so on and so forth going on. But for some reason, they're oblivious to all these forms of crime, like littering. I think it's a serious crime, destroying God's place. So I don't understand. Why aren't they busting people for littering and loitering and trespassing and vagrancy? There's so many crimes going on. And so what? Violent crime goes away. And God bless if it does. But there are so many other forms that they have to address. People do all kinds of writer scams, like with the passes and that. Truly. They scam the CTA, the RTA. They jump over the terminals, and they don't pay. So there's all kinds of crimes going on continuously, but they don't turn a blind eye. How about fake tickets? That was huge to anything, any event, making fake tickets. So there's all kinds of crimes. People, taxis, defrauding, truly not recording their fares and pocketing the fares and not claiming the fares. Again, financial crimes. So I don't understand. There is so much that they can be doing and so much going on that they have to do. I mean, people scamming the meter systems. Truly, I don't understand. They act like people in zoning, truly running slums, not being up to code. That's a crime. That's a criminal activity where law enforcement is supposed to be involved. Violating zoning is a criminal offense. But the Chicago Police Department, they don't do anything about it. They're supposed to be working with the building inspectors, and building inspectors are supposed to turn it over to them like health inspectors, and they're supposed to go in and arrest you and make sure you show up for court and you get an I bond, personal recognizance bond. But there's so much going on. Cars that are not in compliance, truly, that are out of compliance, that are driving around that I don't understand, that aren't in compliance. The vehicle is not in compliance with city, state, county law. And it's just not the plates. It's the vehicle itself that they're violating safety standards, federal, state, county, and local, and the police don't do anything. So there's so much going on, so much they need to be doing, that all they think about is violent crime, violent crime, violent crime. But there's incredible amounts of crime. And then I want them to bring back sodomy laws. And there's other crimes, sexual crimes. So, again, I don't understand. There's all kinds of things for law enforcement to do and all these, and they ignore the majority of all crimes. They only focus on the violent crimes. And I agree, that's the most pressing issue. But if that goes away, there is so much more for them to do that it's incredible. So whether it's tainted food, truly selling food beyond its expiration, that is a public risk. Food poisoning is a very serious offense. Food poisoning. If you sell food that is tainted, and you know that is food poisoning. That is poisoning. That is a criminal offense. But I don't get what law enforcement thinks that there's nothing for them to do. There is so much they're overlooking that it's unbelievable. So I don't get it. Jaywalking tickets, you name it. There is tons of all these bicycles that are breaking the law, you name it. There is so much for them to do. It is unbelievably overwhelming. But they're not doing it. So just like immigration, sanctuary cities, there shouldn't be any sanctuary cities. That goes on to local law enforcement working with ICE, federal, local, county, state. But you say there isn't stuff going on. Well, how do you get 9/11 terrorists? That was a scam. That was a lie with their visas. Student, tourist visas. That involves local law enforcement. You can't have sanctuary cities. So there's lots for them to go on if you're enforcing the law. And then there's all kinds of political corruption and so on. You name it. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they think they got nothing to do. And I don't understand. So what if violent crime goes away? There is all kinds of crime going on that it is unbelievable. And so there is so much for them to do, and they're not doing it. They ignore overwhelmingly all the freaking crimes that are going on. They turn a blind eye every day to the majority. Indecent exposure. I don't get it. They turn a blind eye to that. They turn a blind eye to everything. So, I don't get it. Yeah, like Dublin's. Supposedly they were marrying booze, putting cheap booze into the high-end bottles. But again, hey, I guess, there's nothing for the police to do. That is a bunch of BS. There is so much, and they need to go back on these things. And just because they might not be doing it right now, it doesn't mean they haven't done it. And so they need to go after them retroactive. Statute of limitation. Look at it. How many years did they need to go back for the different crimes? So there's a lot of people that need to be punished for the things they did in the past. So I don't get it. So this used to be slumlords. That's part of it. So non-compliance. So public health risk. So I don't get it. There's so much the police can be doing, and they're not doing anything about it. Nothing about it. So I don't get it. I truly don't get it. There is so much they could be doing, and they're doing so little. And the only thing they focus on is violent crime. How about all the other freaking crime? Truly, all the other crime that's going on constantly. So, why don't they get to work? I'm ending the video.